Hello, and welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today, we're going to talk about having end-of-life conversations. Yay! Everybody's most favorite topic in the whole world, am I right? Oh my goodness. Well, it is now the new year. Happy 2024, everybody. And I hope that you had some time to reflect over the last couple weeks on 2023 and where you are and where you hope to be. And I hope that 2024 is starting out just wonderfully for everybody. Or as best it can. I know if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the cold, dark, cruddy time of year. But the days are getting longer, so that's great. But I just thought, being the time of year where we're thinking about renewal and we're setting New Year's resolutions and we're reinventing ourselves, this seems to be the time of year when people do that. And that's wonderful. I'm always up for some good old-fashioned self-improvement. I personally don't do New Year's resolutions because I feel like there's too much pressure involved. I like to make changes throughout the year in my life to become a better person. But I'm not going to tell everybody that your New Year's resolution should be to have these conversations, because you should be having these conversations all the time. But in this time of year where you might be thinking about getting your life more together or preparing more for things or organizing your life a little more, maybe like I personally, the week between Christmas and New Year, I like to spend that whole week just deep cleaning my house and purging a ton of my belongings. I go through every nook and cranny. It's frightening, but I'll go through every nook and cranny of my house. I'll pull everything out and do a good old-fashioned Marie Kondo Swedish death cleaning, whatever you want to call it, and just get rid of as much crud as I can because, stuff accumulates through the year. Like I said, these are times where we try to rejuvenate ourselves and we try to make some self-improvement. And we unfortunately live in a society, assuming you're listening in the Western cultures, or in the Western side of the world, a lot of our cultures are very death avoidant. We don't like to talk about it. And I don't know if we just feel like talking about it is going to make it happen. And spoiler alert, no, it doesn't work that way, you guys. Talking about it doesn't make it happen. But we need to be having these conversations with each other. Back in early December, I had a party. You guys are going to, you already probably think I'm weird, but stick with me here. I had a party and I called it the Advanced Directive Party, where I just kind of had an open house style thing. I invited people to come over, bring some snacks. I made a big pot of chili and I printed off a bunch of advanced directive paperwork, living will, final will, healthcare power of attorney, all that good stuff. I printed a bunch of those documents out. And I invited who the heck ever wanted to come over to get that filled out, because I'm a notary too, so I could notarize your documents and have it done. And I was impressed with just how many people came and how many people messaged me and said, I cannot make it. I've got XYZ, but I really want to do this. I met with another couple separately after the event to help them notarize their final will information. And more and more my friends are hearing me, thank you, and hearing what I have to say and how important it is that we need to have these conversations. So why? Why do we need to talk about death, Nikki? It's icky, it's gross, and I don't want to. It's uncomfortable. And that's true. It is uncomfortable. Talking about death is it can be scary. It can be sad. It depends on what your viewpoints are. I would encourage you, before I dive into why we talk about this, if you never have attended a death cafe, and I'm pretty sure I brought these up on my podcast before, I hold a monthly death cafe. Actually, I do two. I have one in person and one virtual. You can find information for those on my website, nikkithedeathdoula.com. If you live locally and you want to come to my in-person one, great. If you want to attend my virtual one, you can sign up on my website. But a death cafe is just a gathering of people who are having non-judgmental, open conversations around all things death and dying. And I usually bring some cookies. A lot of times some people will do like a whole meal, make it a whole thing. But it's just a beautiful way to get together and have these conversations that so many people don't want to have. And most of the folks that come to my death cafes have very specific questions, fears, thoughts. It's not a support group. I have to remind people we're not there as a support group. I do grief support groups and I do grief coaching, but this is more just to have these conversations. I have people come in and they've just learned about human composting and they're like, is that something I can do? Or, what do I need to do to prepare for my own death? And what happens if I die tomorrow? Like, what happens to my stuff and my money? And will I have a legacy? And, all these questions people have, and they don't feel comfortable just talking to anybody about them. So they come to these death cafes. So let's go back to the original question then. Why is it so important to talk about this? If you've probably heard me harp a million times on this podcast, or if you know me in person, that you really need to get your advance directive paperwork together. If you are over 18, get them done. I don't care if you're 18 years old in one day and you are the healthiest person in the world. If your health and how well you take care of yourself does not stop a bus from hitting you one day. I'm sorry that's morbid, but it's true. Things happen. Illnesses happen. We learned a lot from COVID, you guys. Nobody was expecting to die from COVID. Nobody expected a pandemic to come through and start wiping us out in huge numbers, and it did. So we don't know when, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We don't know when we're going to leave this earthly realm. We don't get to decide that. I mean, in some situations we can, but that's a whole different topic for another day. But again, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, right? And we need to have our wishes known, especially in circumstances if you have very strong religious beliefs. If you are Muslim or Jewish, a lot of their practices, they have to be in the ground within 24 hours and no embalming, no, chemicals, no nothing. It's very particular how those are done. And if you are, say you're a person of a Jewish or Muslim faith and you've married into a large family of Catholics and Christians, and they have a very different viewpoint on what should be done after you die. But your heritage and your beliefs say you want something very different than what they want. You can't guarantee how people are going to act after you've passed away. So if you need or want something very specific, you have to have it in writing. Make sure you have it in writing. People know where your documents are, and they know your wishes. And the biggest thing I can't impress enough is your living will. That's the document that if you are in a persistent vegetative state, this is an example. If you're in a persistent vegetative state, whether or not you would want to be left on life support or not. And you would like to think you could, till you're blue in the face, tell all your friends and family, I do not want to be, artificially kept alive. I don't want to be in a vegetative state. I don't want to be in a coma for a long time. I don't want that. And they can say, oh, you were right. I would never do that to you. You don't know. People act a little crazy when things go, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the word crazy. People may not act in the manner that you expect or that even they expect. When something like this happens, your spouse has told you a million times, I don't want to be kept in a persistent vegetative state, but then it happens and you can't let them go. It's too hard. It's your person and you're looking at them. You can't just say, I can't be the one to decide that they're not going to be alive anymore. You have to honor their wishes. And if you have wishes like these, get it in writing because you don't know how they might react. Okay? And I hate to sound doom and gloom. And most times these things don't happen. For the most part, families come together, they make the right decision, they honor what the person would have wanted, and that's great. But you can't guarantee that. So if you have very specific wishes, you have to make them known. And again, I don't care if you're 18 and the healthiest human being on the whole planet. You can't keep death at bay if it's coming. It's just how it is. So having these conversations is so, so important. So one of the services I provide as a doula is family mediation. And I've helped people have these conversations with their loved ones. Because let's say, especially people my age, in the sandwich generation, which I had a whole episode on that. Let's say your parents are getting older and you're concerned. They've got a house and they've got different retirement plans and pensions, maybe their social security. They might have specific heirlooms in their possession, and you don't know what they want done with those. You might not even know if they want buried or cremated, what they want done with do they even have a family plot that you don't know about? And you decide, I want to get this stuff in order so I know what to do when the time comes that they're gone. And so you sit down, Mom, Dad, what are your wishes? I want to make sure I get this right. And you get no, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. It's fine. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. No, I want to worry about this, Mother. I want to have this, or Father, whomever. I want to have this done so I can honor your wishes. So if you have that situation where your family's very avoidant to having these conversations, you can bring somebody like me in, or a mediator, just to help facilitate those conversations, to impress upon them how important it is. One thing I usually advise when people have told me, I want to talk to my parents about this, but they're pretty avoidant about it. Well, just remind them. Most parents will avoid talking about it because they don't want to burden you. I hear that from my mother a lot. She always says she doesn't want to burden me with things. Like, that's my job. It's my job now. Especially since my brother's gone, I'm going to be the one to deal with this. Whether she wants her to burden me or not, it's coming to me. So most parents might say, I don't want to bother you with it. I don't want to be a burden. But if you can kind of turn that back around on them and say, well, if I don't know what you want, it's going to be a bigger burden. If you have everything in writing and spelled out exactly how it should go, where you can pre-purchase your funeral plans, guys. You can pre-purchase burials if that's what you wish, or pre-purchase cremations. If you can sit down and say, I have this binder for you, and it has the receipts for my funeral. It has the location of the burial plot I purchased for your father and I, or whomever. And I have a list of people I'd like you to call. Like, what a beautiful gift you can give them, and what a burden you've just taken off their shoulders. And just impress on them that, like, if I have all this spelled out for you, Mom and Dad, or uncle, aunt, grandmother, or grandfather, if I have all that written out, it's no burden. I just do what you want, and I've honored your wishes, and everybody goes home happy. Well, I mean, sad because they're gone, but like, what a beautiful gift you can give your loved ones to have all that done, right? Especially those of you who have children. Like, what a gift that you can give them to know that they don't have to worry about making these decisions on your behalf, and they know what you want, and they'll honor that, I would hope. But if you have it in writing, it sure helps. So this is why we need to start these conversations. And you can't just do it once. You have to revisit this every few years to make sure nothing's changed. Advanced directive paperwork is good forever, as far as I know, unless some crazy law changes. But they always recommend you review these things every 5 years or so. I'm about to redo all of mine just to make sure everything is exactly the way I want it. But you're supposed to revisit these things from time to time. So you may have to have this conversation more than once. Okay, and I know it's icky, but you gotta, once it's done, and you don't have to worry about it again for the next 5 years. So if you need help with these conversations, you can talk to somebody like me or another death doula. There are also attorneys out there that can help with questions you have on final paperwork. I would just caution, a lot of your paperwork you can do yourself without an attorney. I usually, with my clients, recommend for the final will to go through an attorney because I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to be responsible for that. But for things like living will and healthcare power of attorney, you don't need an attorney to do this paperwork. You can do it yourself for free. You can find the forms online. In the state of Ohio, there is an advanced directive paperwork packet through Ohio Health. If you just Google search advanced directives in Ohio, you can pull that up. Just Google search your state or your country where you live in advanced directives. And most times you can find that paperwork out there for free. You print it off, you fill it out, and then you have to have it notarized or 2 witnesses. That's how it is in Ohio anyway. Every state's a little different. Get it notarized and you're done. Then you give a copy to your doctor, your hospital, whoever your primary care physician is. Give some copies to your family members. Christmas is over, but maybe next Christmas wrap up your advanced directives and give it to your family. I know that sounds not very Christmassy, but again, it's a gift that you've given your family, that you've done this work for them. There are tons of products out there you can buy to help you with this. There is a book I recommend to people a lot. I bought one for myself on Amazon called I'm Dead, Now What? And it's just a spiral notebook where it's got different tabs in it, and you can fill out, your family history, friends and family, your doctors, what bank accounts you have. You don't have to put your account numbers in that book. What life insurance policies you have. Like, what a gift that you can just have that book handy. So if something happens to you, we can leaf through it and find out what all you have and what we need to take care of. There's a product and a company, I was on their podcast a while back, called the Knock Box, and that's NOK box for next of kin. And you can purchase a stack of, they even give you all the papers printed out and hanging file folders. So you can get like a little file, if you have a file cabinet, or get a little file box that has little thingies in it, and you just plop them in there, fill out the paperwork, and it comes with those envelopes. You can put keys in that are fireproof, things like that, and your important documents, and just have that in your house and let your family know. If you have these papers done, tell your family members where they are too, so it's not a scavenger hunt to try to find them, but say, hey, this black box by my desk is where my paperwork is. Or, hey, in the file cabinet in the basement, there's a section called Knockbox. That's all my paperwork. And again, that's an amazing gift you've just left behind to your friends and family, that they don't have to make these decisions and do all this work on your behalf. You've done it. You have everything together. Okay? And keep some living documents too. I have a spreadsheet and a couple folders in my Dropbox that I have shared with my family and a couple of close personal friends that I trust, that have like people they should call if something happens to me. Like, my husband's not going to know every single client I might be working with at that time and their contact information, which I'm not going to share that anyway because of HIPAA. But if, God forbid, something happens to me suddenly and my clients can't get a hold of me, it might be nice to get that phone call, say, look, I'm really sorry. But, lists like that of people that should be notified, updated paperwork, updated life insurance policies, just have all that somewhere where people can get to it. That's the end all be all of this. Okay? All right. I've harped enough. I'm going to jump down off my soapbox. This whole episode was a soapbox, and I apologize. But this is important. You guys, we need to talk about these things, and not just the nitty gritty of like the details of what's going to happen to my bank account or especially if you have pets or children. Oh my goodness. If you don't get along with certain family members and you want to make sure other family members are well cared for, I mean, you got to get this stuff in writing. Okay, I said I'd get off the soapbox. I'm sorry. But even outside of that, like I said, if you have a certain song you want played at your funeral, my husband's mother, for like his whole life, kept telling him, I want you to play Freebird at my funeral. And she said it kind of as a joke and kind of not. So sure enough, when she passed, we played Freebird at her funeral. It's things like that. If you want certain things to happen, make your wishes known. That's why we got to talk about this. And I will tell you, having been in this field for a few years now, it takes away the sting. Talking about death and dying is hard, but it's like anything. The more you do it, you get I don't want to say you get desensitized to it, because sure, it still hits me hard. When my clients die, it's hard. It still hurts, but to have these conversations over and over again makes it easier. So don't be afraid of it. I promise talking about death will not make it happen, okay? Okay. Now, since we are finally at the end of the episode, and I will stop harping at you, it's time for the Death Deck. Ooh. All right. Okay, I am actually going to pull from the End of Life deck. All right. Shuffle things up a bit. And pull one at random. Oh my God, how appropriate is this? Okay. My life insurance policy is A, in place and has correct designated beneficiary information. B, unknown, I might have a policy through an employer. Or C, non-existent, no need to search, there isn't one. Oof. Okay, that last one. Get life insurance, you guys. Oh my. Yeah. Well, that seemed really appropriate. My life insurance policy I'm really embarrassed about this because I was just speaking with a financial advisor and she asked me about life insurance and I was like, I think I have a policy. I've never worried about it because I've always had one through my employer, but now that I'm self-employed, I know my father said he set one up for me when I was a baby, and I think it still exists. I don't know anything about it. I've asked him for a copy of it a bunch of times and I haven't gotten it yet. So I know I have one there somewhere. I did get life insurance through my self-pay health insurance too, but I don't know where I have a copy of the policy. So this is embarrassing. After all that preaching, oops, I guess I better get on that. All right, I guess Nikki's got a project for as soon as she's done editing this podcast. Okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. I hope you got some value from this. Please share this podcast with any of your friends or family who might appreciate what I have to say about grief, death, dying, all of that. Please leave a review, leave the little star thingy, write a review. It's the best way to have more people find me so more people can hear my lovely voice. You can also find me on the socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Nikki the Death Doula. You can find my website online, nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can contact me through any of those. And if you are a really amazing person and you've decided for 2024 you want to start donating to some great organizations, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. You will get access to my podcast a week early. You get unedited videos of my conversations with my guests. You get grief affirmations twice a week in your inbox. And hopefully we'll do some Q&As and other great events. But most of all, you'll be helping me to provide pro bono work to those who cannot afford my services. And one last little shout out to an amazing nonprofit organization called Let the Light In. Let the Light In provides support for women who have suffered pregnancy and infant loss. You can get more information for Let the Light In at ltli.org. 1 in 4 women will suffer pregnancy or infant loss at some point in their life. It's a terrible, devastating thing that is not talked about enough. And women don't always get the support they need. So if you have suffered a loss and you need some help, please reach out to us. We have staff. I say we, I'm on the board of directors. There's staff available that can reach out and talk to you, be your companion support. We have items that we can send to you to help you with whatever your needs might be at home at that time. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you all are doing wonderfully, beautifully well. And remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. And grief doesn't always have to suck.